ونستغفره ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلوات الله وسلامه وبركاته عليه. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد فإن خير الكلام كلام الله وأحسن هدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. What's today on the Hijri calendar? They still keep putting these of Rajab, 29th night of Rajab. What's it say on the Muslim Pro? What does it say? So it's the 28th night. 28th night. طيب. So Bismillah. We start by saying it's 8:10. We start this lesson at 8:10 p.m. Wednesday, April the 3rd, 2019, which now agrees or coincides with the 28th night of Rajab, عام 1440, after the 1440, after the Hijrah of Mustafa alayhi salatu wasalam. We were discussing about the different ahkam in regards to Sha'ban, due to the fact that we are monks, or we're about to enter the month of Sha'ban, which is a month before Ramadan. We were talking about the different ahkam in regards to Sha'ban from last class. And we talked about that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in this particular month, that he fasted the majority of the month of Sha'ban. And this is what we discussed last class. And this is what we discussed in regards to what those who mentioned about what was the sunnah or the authentic affirmed sunnah of the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam in this particular the month that we're about to embark upon in a couple of days. I don't know what I did with the page. I just had it. Here it is. طيب. We saw all the narrations were authentic in regards to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam upon Salama, and likewise upon our mother Aisha, and other than them from the great companions of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. For example, on the authority of Anas ibn Malik and also Usama bin Zayd, it says, قلت يا رسول الله لما لم أرك تصوم من شهرين من الشهور ما تصوم من شعبان قال ذاك شهر تغفل الناس فيه عنه بين رجب ورمضان والشهر ترفع فيه الأعمال إلى رب العالمين وأحب أن يرفع عملي وأنا صائم. We know that narration is also Hasan, Hasanahu al-Imam al-Albani and other than them. So we said that the narration, for example, he says, O Messenger of Allah, he says, why is it I did not see you fasting of a month in comparison to the other months of the year of what similar to what you fast in the month of Sha'ban, meaning, as we discussed last class, that the Messenger of Allah did an abundance of fasting this particular month. He did an abundance of fasting in this month. And the Messenger of Allah said the virtue of fasting in the month of Sha'ban, he said, ذَاكَ شَهْرٌ تَغْفُلُ النَّاسُ فِيهِ عَنْ بين رجب وشعبان وشهر ترفع فيه الأعمال إلى رب العالمين وأحب أن يرفع عملي وأنا صائم. He said that is the month that people are heedless of. They are heedless in that particular month. Between Rajab and Sha'ban, it is the month in which actions are raised to Rabbul Alameen. It says, and I would love that my actions be raised, and I am fasting. This particular narration, يا معشر الإخوة, يدل على ماذا؟ يدل على إثبات علو الله تبارك وتعالى. لأن الأعمال ترفع بمعنى أن الله في العلو. طيب. Also from the benefits that's extracted from this narration is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is above. Because it says here that the actions, I would love that my actions ascend, that they be raised. That my actions what? Be raised. So the message of Allah will clearly what? Establish that the actions be raised, or that the actions are raised in this particular month. Oh, excuse me, I keep thinking this is Sha'ban. In Sha'ban, that the actions are raised, and that one should fast while the actions are being what? Shown to Rabbul Alameen, even though he knows best of what his servants are upon. طيب. We also mentioned, Ya Ma'ashal Ikhwa, regards to was there. We also discuss about the narration where the Messenger of Allah ﷺ had mentioned and said, فَإِذَا انْتَصَفَ شَعْبَانَ فَلَا تَصُومُوا حَتَّى يَكُونَ رَمَضَانَ. We said that the great Imam from the Imam, the great Sheikh Abdul Aziz bin Baz, rahimahullah, and also the great Imam Muhammad al-Siddiq al-Albani, and other than them from the Salaf who authenticated, from the Imam of this time, authenticated the narration. We said that the meaning of the hadith is what, everyone? We said that the meaning of it is that if a person fasts before the middle of Sha'ban, then he can also likewise fast the second half. If you want to say, if he fasted some days of the first half, then he can fast some of the day or the rest of the days of the second half. So that's what we said that particular narration means. So it doesn't mean totally that if a person, for example, it does not mean, for example, or rather it means, rather it means that if a person left off fasting the first part of the month, left it off, and then entered upon the second half of Sha'ban and he started fasting, then that would be falling inside of what the Messenger of Allah had prohibited in his narration. So as long as a person fasted at the beginning or the first half of the month, then, like we said, فَقَدْ أَصَابَ السُنَّةِ لأن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم كان يصوم أكثر شهر شعبان. So we saw that a person, if he fasts the first duration of the first half of the month, then he fasts the second half, then that person has agreed with the sunnah. Just leave him. He's being a kid. Kids are going to do things they irritate you from time to time. It happens, Sheikh. There's no exception. I know our children are born righteous. They're going to make a lot of mistakes. Tayyib. I'm just glad he's here. At least he's not on the street shooting and doing something stupid. Anyway. Tayyib. So we say in this regard, Ya Ma'ashal Ikhwa, that's the meaning of the hadith. The meaning of the hadith is, as long as the individual or person fasts for the first part of the month, then, like we said, فَقَدْ أَصَابَ السُنَّةِ, he has agreed with the sunnah. So if you fast in the first part of the month, and then fast in the second part, then you agree with the sunnah of Mustafa alayhi salatu wassalam. So that's the meaning of the hadith. Like we said, as long as the niyyah is towards, or the niyyah is of fasting, is for the month of Sha'ban, and it's in regards to what we discussed last class, which was what, everyone? That if a person's niyyah is fasting this month of Sha'ban, why I keep saying Sha'ban, I keep thinking we're in Sha'ban. As long as a person is fasting for Sha'ban, then he can fast all the way up to when? All the way up to Ramadan, as long as his niyyah is not for what? Ramadan. If his niyyah for Ramadan, then that falls into a prohibition, where we talked about last class, where the Messenger of Allah had mentioned and said, which is in your books, in Buloogh Al-Maraam, where it said, لا تقدموا رمضان بيوم أو لا تقدموا رمضان بصوم بيوم أو يومين إلا رجل كان يصوم صوما فليصوم. Right? So the Messenger of Allah said, do not precede Ramadan by fasting a day or 2 days. Why? If you're doing it out of safety precautions measures to take for Ramadan, do not fast it. Due to the fact, like we said, that some people do it just to say, for example, I just want to be secure. I just want to just do it just in case it's Ramadan tomorrow. We said that the Messenger of Allah has prohibited that. The strongest opinion, and matter of fact, the text takes precedence over everyone's statement. The Messenger of Allah clearly prohibited, then one do that. But notice that the Messenger of Allah is istathna fi akhir al-hadith. He gave an exception. What did he mention in the last part of the hadith? He said, except that the person that he fasts, a particular fast that he's used to doing, and his intention is for what? Sha'ban, not for Ramadan. But if his intention for Sha'ban, and he's accustomed to doing a certain fast on a particular day, and that so-called happened to fall on those days, meaning just a day or 2 days before Ramadan, then he can do it. Is that clear, everyone? طيب. The other thing I want to mention is another thing that's from, or what we discussed from last class. There is a virtue in the month of Sha'ban, but it does not justify that one practice the innovative practice that a lot of the Muslims do these days, which is what they call hukm, or they call ihtifal, والاحتفال بليلة النصف من شعبان. وهذا أمر بدعي ليس عليه أصل. لم يكن عليه وما مارسه النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وما حث أمته على فعله وما فعله الصحابة ولا فعله من بعدهم من التابعين. هو أمر محدث لا أصل له في الشرع, as we know. As you'll find, it is an innovative practice in the month of Sha'ban that we're going to discuss right now. Another thing, well, firstly, before I discuss this, I said this last class. There is a narration talking about the virtue of Sha'ban. There is a particular narration. I shouldn't say virtue, but there is something of a reward or something of a distinguishing factor about that month. We said, number one, the Messenger of Allah said that is the month in which the people are heedless of, and that's when their actions are raised to Him, right? Right, that's number one. But that does not mean that there's something that of an affair what we can now practice that's from the religion. Because we know there's other times where the actions are raised to Rabbul Alameen, as Ibn al-Qayyim mentions. That's what I wanted to bring. Ibn al-Qayyim basically refuted those who try to practice this innovative practice. He said, just because the Messenger of Allah mentioned that the actions are raised to this month, or, for example, this hadith, such as when the authority Mu'adh ibn Jabal رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال يطلع الله إلى جميع خلقه ليلة النصف من شعبان فيغفر لجميع خلقه إلا لمشرك أو مشاحن. طيب, we talked about this narration last class that Allah looked to all of the creation on the Laylatul Nisf, on the night of the half or the middle day of the month of Sha'ban, the middle day of the month of Sha'ban. And He forgave for everyone or all of the creation except a mushrik or mushahin. طيب. Ibn al-Qayyim also refuted this notion that the people took from this narration to now come with an innovative practice, which is people celebrating on the middle night of the month of Sha'ban, which has no asl, has no origin. Even as some of the Salaf fell into practicing it, we're going to read what the great Imam had mentioned, Shaykh Abdul-Aziz bin Baz, rahimahullah, rahmatu wasi'a, wa jazahullahu anna wa anis sunnah wa anil muslimin, khayrul jazaa. What he mentioned and said, I'm going to read quickly what the great Imam Ibn Baz said about this particular practice. The practice of, don't worry, he's memorizing. The practice on this month, or the month we're going to embark upon, after 15 days goes by, I'm sure that you're going to run into some Muslims who's going to say, yeah, akhi, we're going to practice, we're going to particularize this night with either standing in prayer or fasting. That's what they'll do. Either particularizing that particular night by either fasting or they stand the night in prayer. طيب. He was asked the same thing. He says the same question that we talked about. حكم الاحتفال بليلة النصف من شعبان. أما بعد فقد قال الله تعالى اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم وأتممت عليكم نعمتي إلى آخر الآية. Of course, I'm sure everyone is familiar with the ayah, which is the Surah Al-Ma'idah, where Allah says, today I have completed for you your religion, and I've completed my favor upon you, and I am pleased with the religion of Islam as a deen, as a religion. So you notice that he's starting it off by saying basically, as if he's saying that the affair that we're going to talk about and explain has no origin. He's using this ayah as evidence. We'll skip it down a little bit because it's a little bit tawil. We'll try to summarize it. He says, وَأَوْضَحَ صلى الله عليه وسلم أن كل ما يحدثه الناس بعته وينسبونه إلى دين الإسلام من أقوال أو أعمال فكله بدعة مردود على من أحدثه ولو حسن قصده وقد عرف أصحاب رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم الأمر وهكذا علماء الإسلام بعتهم فأنكروا البدع وحذروا منها أشد التحذير كما ذكر ذلك كل من صنف في تعظيم السنة وإن كان البدعة كابن وضاح والطرطوشي وابن شامة وغيرهم. So then he goes on to say, rahimahullah, he says that the scholars of Islam Excuse me, I'm going to go back a little bit. He says that everything that the Messenger of Allah, that's not what it says, that everything that the people practice, something newly invented, and they ascribed it to the religion of Islam, of statements or actions. For all of it is innovations, and it is rejected upon the one who came with that innovative practice. Based upon what narration, everyone? I'm sure everyone's familiar with the narration of Aisha, من أحدث في أمرنا هذا ما ليس منه من أحدث في أمرنا هذا ما ليس منه فهو رد وفي رواية ومن عمل عملا ليس عليه أمرنا فهو رد. Right, everyone? Whoever brings about a newly invented affair or brings about some newly invented practice in this affairs of ours will have it rejected, will not be accepted. I'm sure everyone is familiar with that exception, right? With that narration, right? طيب. So then he goes on to say, the great Imam, he says, even if his intention is good, وَلَوْ حَسُنَ قَصْدُهُ, even his intention is good, even the companions of the Messenger of Allah, they knew the affair. Just likewise, the ulama of Islam who came after them, as they rejected and evaded practices, and they warned against it. Rather, you'll find that they even wrote authors and treatises and books glorifying the Messenger of Allah sunnah and prohibiting bid'ah and condemning it, of newly invented practices, such as the books that are made by Ibn Waddah and Tartushi and Abu Shama, which is 3 books that I have. 2 of them I have and 1 I don't. It's called Ba'ith al-Hawadith wal-Bid'a. It's one of the don't worry about it. Just trying to make it concise. طيب. So then the great Imam Ibn Baz, he goes on to say, rahimahullah, from those innovative practices what the people bring about of a newly invented matter, he says, Bid'atul ihtifal bi laylatil nisf min Sha'ban. He says the innovative practice of the people celebrating the middle part or the middle day or night of the month of Sha'ban. He says, in particularizing that day with fasting, he said, which has no dalil for it. وَلَيْسَ عَلَيْهِ دَلِيلٌ لَيْسَ عَلَيْهِ دَلِيلٌ يَجُوزُ الْاِعْتِمَادُ عَلَيْهِ وَقَدْ وَرَدَ فِي فَضْلِهَا أَحَادِيث ضَعِيفَةٌ لَا يَجُوزُ الْاِعْتِمَادُ عَلَيْهَا. He says, you'll find that he mentioned his set goes on about what we're saying now. He said, there has no evidence and proof for that, where it's permissible for one to utilize and rely upon. Rather, when it comes in its virtue, you'll find there are narrations that are weak, and it's not permissible for one to rely upon those narrations. He says that as for what came in the virtue of the salat in it, he says you'll find that it's also mawdu', or those narrations are fabricated. Those narrations are fabricated. So you look at this hadith, he's saying, well, what did the sheikh, did he now forget about this? No, we don't, because there's nowhere in this narration authentic that I just read to everyone, the authority of Mu'adh ibn Jabal, that Allah looked to all of the creation on the middle part of the month of Sha'ban, and he will forgive for all of the creation except the mushrik or mushahin. Is there anywhere in this narration that has now legislated for anyone to fast or stand in the prayer at night? Do you find it? Nowhere. Nowhere. طيب. When I get the chance next class, inshallah, I'm going to bring what Ibn al-Qayyim mentions also. He also rebuttals this same affair and practice that the people also practice for the Muslims. Where he mentions it says something else similar to that. He said, طيب, if that's the case, if people want to say, well, look, see, there's a virtue on the middle part of Sha'ban. So who doesn't want to fast on this particular night, akhi? Who doesn't want to stand in the middle of the night because Allah is going to look to all of the creation? Isn't that something great? And you'll find that Ibn al-Qayyim says, طيب, every Monday and Thursday, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah descends every night to the third part of the heavens. Every single night. Ibn al-Qayyim brings this rebuttal. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala descends to every part of the night. So that means that you might as well just, if you're going to take that same understanding from this, so why don't you not particularize every night with fasting and also likewise standing in the salat every night? Since Allah descends every night. That's something great, isn't it? The fact that Allah descends to the lowest heaven in a way that befits Him. Of course, we know that descension does not resemble the descension of the creation. But isn't that something great? And Allah, not only that, what does He say? That Allah even says 3 affairs, which is tremendous. Is there someone who asks and I'll answer his dua? Isn't there one person that asks for my forgiveness and I'll forgive him? Isn't there a person that is also faces some endeavor? Isn't there a person that's making a dua and I'll answer it? Isn't there a person that will ask and I'll give it to him? And isn't there a person that seeks my forgiveness and I'll forgive him? Isn't that tremendous? But did the Messenger of Allah say, because of this, I have now made a sunnah for you every night to what? to stand in prayer and also what? Fast. So this is what Ibn al-Qayyim was bringing his rebuttal. And I'm going to bring it a little bit later. This is what he's bringing his rebuttal. Just because you have this hadith here of Mu'adh ibn Jabal does not justify that you what? Particularize that particular day of Sha'ban with fasting or standing in prayer. And he also brings another rebuttal. He also says, okay, he says, yeah, but see the Prophet said in the month of Sha'ban, the actions are raised. That's tremendous, isn't it? So that means we should fast. Fast, yes. For a whole month, not just particularizing what? One night. You understand? And also likewise, if that was the case, of course, then we have the hadith of every Monday and Thursday. The Messenger of Allah had also highly emphasized that one fast due to the fact that one's actions also are shown on those days or shown to Allah Ta'ala on those particular days. But those were the rebuttals that you'll find at Ibn al-Qayyim, and I'll give it to everyone a little bit later. But I want to keep in mind what the great Imam Ibn Baz was mentioned in here. So he's saying that this narration is authentic, but there is no narration that mentions in it a siyam or qiyam, fasting or standing in prayer. And he's saying that all those narrations are either da'ifa or mawdu'a. So this is what he goes on to say. He says, أما ما ورد في فضل الصلاة فيها فكله موضوع كما نبه على ذلك كثير من أهل العلم وسيأتي ذكر بعض كلامهم إن شاء الله وورد فيها أيضا آثار عن بعض السلف من أهل الشام وغيرهم والذي أجمع عليه جمهور العلماء أن الاحتفال بها بدعة وأن الأحاديث الواردة في فضلها كلها ضعيفة وبعضها موضوع وممن نبه على ذلك الحافظ ابن رجب في كتابه لطائف المعارف وغيره والأحاديث الضعيفة إنما يعمل بها في العبادات التي قد ثبت أصلها بالأدلة صحيحة. This I'm going to teach you guys something. وأما الاحتفال بليلة النصف من شعبان فليس له أصل صحيح حتى يستأنس له بالأحاديث الضعيفة. So he goes on to say, he said that all of those narrations of now for a person to perform prayer or fast in that particular night either are weak or they're all what? Fabricated. Right? He says just as Ahl Ilm have brought attention and awareness to that, and it's going to come now, the mentioning of some of their speech, inshallah, he says there is some athar of some of the Salaf from Ahl al-Sham. So you see that the Shaykh is being what? Just. He's having adl. He said there is some narrations in which people utilize from the Salaf. There is some narrations. He said, and other than them. However, what has now been agreed upon, and what has been a consensus amongst the majority of Ahl Ilm, that al-ihtifal, that celebrating in that particular day or night, or celebration that night, whether it be fasting or standing at night or a celebration, is an innovative practice. He says in the narrations that come in this regard or its virtue, he says, of course, of prayer and fasting and all that, all of it is weak. Some of it is mawdu'. Just as the great Imam Al-Hafidh Ibn Rajab had wrote in his book entitled Lata'if al-Ma'arif. He says, so as for the weak ahadith, now listen to this. I want everybody to be attentive to this. As for the weak ahadith, they are utilized in an affair called Fada'ilul A'mal bishurut. بشروط ما الشرط من أحد الشروط التي ثبت أصلها بالأدلة الصحيحة. As you'll find that what they call فضائل الأعمال, I'm going to teach you guys something. طيب. There's an affair, as we know, that the Sufis practice an affair called, which is something you'll find that a lot of the Sufis, inshallah, you guys will never be tested with being Sufi. But if you go to and listen to some of the things that they practice, they'll call it Fada'il al-A'mal. That's something that's famous amongst the Sufis. So inshallah, you'll never be a Sufi. He's memorizing. He'll never be a Sufi. Show you God, may Allah protect you guys from ever becoming a Sufi. Trust me. You do not want to be a Sufi. Sufism is, it's like a whole other religion. Trust me. But at any rate, so you'll find that a lot of them practice something called Fada'il al-A'mal. Fada'il al-A'mal. That hadith, that's for Fada'il al-A'mal. You'll find they say, yeah, we know it's weak, but it's for Fada'il al-A'mal, ya akhi. It's khair. I guess it's his sister at the door. I think he's going to open it. Qurban, you will go open it? You sure? Oh, the key? Oh, okay. You'll find that they say, Fadail al-A'mal. Ya akhi, we know it's weak, but it's in Fadail al-A'mal. The great Imam al-Albani, he brought the science of when Fadail al-A'mal basically means virtuous actions. That's all it means. Fadail al-A'mal means virtuous actions. Like, you'll find that the Sufis, in this regard, you'll find that a lot of them, they say, yeah, we know it's weak, but that's in Fadail al-A'mal. It's weak. It's fabricated, but it's in Fadail al-A'mal. It's permissible. We know it's not weak, but we can do it. Like, in regards to virtuous actions, in certain affairs, as we know, the hadith of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, okay, I'm going to summarize it. If the meaning of the hadith, even if the chain might be weak, but we still have to embrace what? The meaning of it, with the condition that it's been affirmed and it's been firmly established and it has an origin for it, and there's a text either in the book of Allah, or there's an ayah, either in the book of Allah affirming it, its meaning, or it's been firmly authenticated in the authentic sunnah of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Meaning that there's an origin for it, either in the book of Allah or the sunnah. So that narration might be weak in its chain. But if the meaning has been affirmed with another authentic narration, then we have to take the what? The meaning of it. Not necessarily the actual what? Text. Is it clear what I'm saying? Is it clear? So a person would say, see, but the Sufis take it to another what? To another level. They said, no, it's weak, but it's in Fadail al-A'mal. That's why the great Imam al-Albani has said, and this is why even the great Imam ibn Baz said the exact same thing. This is what he's saying. He says, وَالْأَحَدِيثُ الضَّعِيفَةِ إِنَّمَا يُعْمَلُ بِهَا فِي الْعِبَادَاتِ الَّتِي قَدْ ثَبَتَ أَصْلُهَا بِأَدِلَّةٍ صَحِيحَةٍ. He says, those weak narrations, verily, they are applied and they can be utilized in the affairs of the ibadat, of worship, and in the bab of Fadail al-A'mal, or in the affair of virtuous actions, in which its origin has been affirmed with those authentic proofs. I mean, it has an origin, it has an asl. There's an origin to it. There's other also shurut. Matter of fact, no, I don't want to branch off. I have it right here too. Everything the great Imam al-Albani mentioned right here. This book also was utilized. This is also this book called Targhib wa Tarhib by Al-Mundhiri. Right? Which is a book that's also was utilized by some of the Sufis, what they used to practice and say this is in regards to Fadail al-A'mal, and they used to use this book. So the great Imam al-Albani came and he checked this book. He checked it. And he also brought in his muqaddimah, in the actual beginning part of it, of the conditions of when a person can utilize a narration for what they call Fadail al-A'mal. He talked about it. Matter of fact, I'll talk about it later on because this other thing, I don't want to get too far into that. But just alhamdulillah, you guys now have a what? You have some type of clarification in this regard by saying what? It's not permissible to utilize the narrations of Fadail al-A'mal. So if a Sufi comes to you and say this to you, you know what to reply back to him. That's why we say that knowledge is your protection. It is your what? Your silah. It's your weapon. We're not talking about the actual weapon of a gun. We're talking about the weapon of knowledge. The weapon of knowledge is your guiding light in these days. Because some people will come to you and say, Ya akhi, we know it's weak, but it's in regards to what? Fadail al-A'mal. And we say from the conditions that you can utilize or practice a weak narration like that in Fadail al-A'mal is that it has to what? Has to be an origin for it in the book of Allah, or authentically reported where there's an origin for it in the authentic sunnah. Is it clear? So even though that narration is weak and we take its meaning, but if it has not been affirmed in the what? In the authentic narrations, then it's not permissible to rely upon those narrations that you are practicing. You'll find that a lot of Sufis, they do this. They utilize a lot of books or narrations that are either fabricated or weak, saying that's in Fadail al-A'mal, but we tell them, yeah, but there's no origin to it. Not in the book of Allah or authentically reported message of Allah, so it's not permissible to utilize those narrations in what they call Fadail al-A'mal. Is it clear? Is it clear, everyone? طيب. He said, وَقَدْ ذَكَرَ هذا, the great Imam ibn Baz, he goes on to say, وَقَدْ ذَكَرَ هذه القاعدة الجليلة الإمام أبو العباس شيخ الإسلام تيمية رحمه الله وأنا أنقل لك أيها القارئ ما قاله بعض أهل العلم في هذه المسألة. حتى تكون على بينة في ذلك. وقد أجمع العلماء رحمهم الله على أن الواجب رد ما تنازع فيه الناس من المسائل إلى كتاب الله وإلى سنة رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم، فما حكم به أو أحدهما فهو الشرع الواجب الاتباع، وما خالفهما وجب اطراحه، وما لم يرد فيهما من العبادات فهو بدعة لا يجوز فعله، فضلا عن الدعوة إليه وتحبيذه، كما قال سبحانه في سورة النساء: يا أيها الذين آمنوا اطيعوا الله واطيعوا الرسول وأولي الأمر منكم، إن تنازعتم في شيء فردوه إلى الله والرسول إن كنتم تؤمنون بالله واليوم الآخر، ذلك خير وأحسن تأويلا. طيب, so just continue to mention what he said. This principle, what we're mentioning now, the great Imam Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah also mentioned this principle. He says, and I'm now going to convey to you, O reader, some of what Ahl Ilm mention in this regard, in this matter. He says, so you'll be upon clarification in this. As the ulama have mentioned, has said, that the wajib, what is obligatory, is to return those affairs as a pillow. This is called a pillow. It's to return those affairs that which you disagree in, of matters back to the book of Allah, the sunnah, the message of Allah. I already know you memorize it. That is obligatory that one follow of what has been established in the book of Allah or in the sunnah, the message of Allah, or both of them together. That what has ever been affirmed in the two, it's obligatory for one to what? To follow. And that destroys and decimates all types of ikhtilaf. All types of what? Differences. طيب. Well, anything that opposes those two origins, we know, it's obligatory for us to what? Reject it. It's not what? We're not supposed to say, Ya akhi, ahl ilm differ. No, we say that Allah, what Allah and His Messenger said, takes precedence over what? Over everyone. Ka'ina man kan. Doesn't matter who it is. طيب. He says, and there has not come in the book of Allah, the sunnah, the message of Allah of certain affairs of ibadat, then it is bid'ah. Also we know, to add on to that, is that we know al-asl fil ibadat, kullu shay muharram. كل شيء على التحريم حتى يأتي النص على مشروعيته. That is the أصل. بخلاف باب المعاملات فكل شيء على حل حتى يرد النص على تحريمها. أما في العبادات فنشدد كل شيء في باب العبادات محرم على التحريم حتى يأتي النص على مشروعيته. That is the أصل, as we know. Everyone knows that the origin in the affairs of worship, everything is haram. Until there's a text affirming its legislation. Why? Because the affairs of worship and the affairs of i'tiqad and the affairs of the belief system are the most sacred in the religion. Especially in the affairs, for example, of Bab al-Asma wa-Sifat, for example, of the khabar about Allah, about the affairs of the hereafter, about the affairs of the unseen. لا يجوز الاجتهاد فيها على البتات. It's not permissible for anyone to make ijtihad with their own opinion. Everything, it has to be a what? Text. Can I be, I think Allah has a hand? No, I think, la. It's a text. The affairs, especially of ibadat, is also very sacred. They're the most sacred of affairs. So everything is upon haram until there's a text affirming that what? For legislation. In contrast to mu'amalat, as we know. In contrast to what? Or if you want to say al-asl fil ibadat al-mana'. هذه هي القاعدة بنصها. That the origin in al-ibadat is al-mana'. Al-mana'. It's prohibited. Everything is prohibited. هم use نحن نريد أن نتقي بألفاظ أهل العلم. الأصل في العبادات المنع. The origin, the affair of, or the affair of worship is everything is mamnu'. Everything is prohibited. Until there's a text affirming its mashru'iyatihi. It affirms, until there's a text that affirms its what? It affirms its legislation. You understand, everyone? Is it clear what I'm saying? In contrast to Bab al-Mu'amalat, in contrast to the affairs of what? Of transactions and dealings, everything's halal until there's a text affirming it's what? It's impermissible to do it. So, but if you know the text, khalas, you have to stay away from it. You can't say now, I don't know about pork, I don't know the text. Yes, you do. You know the text. Okay? طيب. Even if you don't have the text memorized, as long as you have the meaning, you have the hukm memorized, khalas, kafin. That's enough. It's adequate. You know it's an ayah in the book of Allah. For example, I don't know the text is zina haram. Yes, you do. You know it, and Allah has clearly mentioned in His book that it's not permissible to fornicate. It's not permissible to have. It's not permissible to have premarital relationships. وَلَا تَتَّخِذِي أَخْدَى. If you want to say in the ayahs, Allah Ta'ala says in His book, والمحصنات والمؤمنات والمحصنات من الذين أوتوا الكتاب من قبلكم إذا آتيتموهن أجورهن محصنين غير إيش مسافحين ولا متخذي أخدان ولا متخذي يعني أصدقاء صديقات عشيقات إلى آخره. هذا هو معنى الآية. That when you do not take them as boyfriend or girlfriend. So if you don't know now, you know it now. Just gave you the ayah. So those taking them, keeping your private parts chastity, it says in the ayah, and not taking them as akhdan. As we know, the word khadan in the Arabic language means sadiq or ashiq. It means boyfriend or girlfriend. Or if you want to say a friend or someone you take as a premarital relationship before the marriage. So if you don't know the text, you know it now. But at any rate, so that's the reason why we say, Ya ma'ashar, I'm just playing with you. I'm not talking about this, not directed at you. Relax. طيب. So that's the reason why we say everything in the affairs of what? Mu'amalat. All of it is what? Everything is upon what, everyone? Hil. Everything is upon what? Everything is permissible to text saying it's impermissible. As far as in the affairs of ibadat, al-asl fiha what? إيش al-asl fiha إيش يا إخوة? Al-asl fiha al-mana'. The origin in it is that everything is what? As far as the ibadat. Impermissible. So this affair of now, standing in prayer, fasting, there's no text for it. So is it permissible to practice it based upon these qawa'id? No. Based upon this principle, there's no text. So you to draw close to Allah by fasting in the middle of Sha'ban and particularizing that particular day by fasting and standing is an affair that is what? It's impermissible. Based upon first of all, there's no text for it. Secondly, on top of that, to make matters worse, you're drawing close to Allah by something Allah did not legislate. And as we know, Allah Ta'ala clearly mentions in His book, أَمْ لَهُمْ شُرَكَاءُ شَرَعُوا مِنَ الدِّينِ مَا لَمْ يَأْذَنْ بِهِ اللَّهِ. He said, do they have partners that has legislated for them an affair that Allah did not give any what? Did not give any permission for. Tafaddal, I'm sorry. Sorry, everyone. He has to call you there. Don't worry, he's memorizing. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Shun la ilaha illallah. Shun la ilaha illallah. Shun anna Muhammadan Rasul. What if you do one day my workout, all the stuff I have to do? Are you going to work out with me? You want to leave? ومر بهذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آتي محمد وسيد الفضيل وبعث مقام أحمد. Don't worry, I'm going to show you what I do one day. You'll be like, wow, you do all that? You still be up? Do a lot of stuff. You'd be surprised. But you got to kind of torture yourself, though, in certain things in your diet. You're going to have to, it's torture. You know, as a matter of fact, I don't want nobody to have the diet I feel sorry for you if you did. Huh? My diet. I feel sorry for you. If you have my diet, I'll feel sorry for you. Anyway, طيب. It's to make you laugh. طيب, those dry jokes. طيب. So this regards what we say, Lataif al-Ma'arib al-Hafid bin Rajab. Listen to, so we want to speak about now, people say there is athar from the Salaf. But listen what the great Imam Ibn Rajab al-Hafiz, Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali, rahimahullah, the great Imam. When he mentioned his book called Lata'if al-Ma'arif, listen what he goes on to say. But he said about this matter, I'm going to just read it in English quickly, even though it's in Arabic. He says, after he said what the text, what we just mentioned, said, he says, far celebrating or particularizing or specializing the middle night of Sha'ban, he says, some of the tabi'een from Ahl al-Sham. So this is what Sheikh bin Baz mentioned, the first part. He says, some of the tabi'een from Ahl al-Sham used to do this. From them was Khalid ibn Ma'dan. Even the great Imam Makhul, the great Imam. So we know Makhul is from the A'imma, from the Salaf. And Luqman ibn Amir, and other than them. They used to glorify that night, and they used to what? Be diligent in it, of worship. So let's listen. وَمِنْهُمْ, so based upon them, the people took that there's a virtue from it, and they started magnifying that particular night. وَقَدْ قِيلَ إِنَّهُ بَلَغَهُمْ فِي ذَلِكَ آثَارٌ إِسْرَائِيلِيَّةٌ. So the people, now they were making excuses for them, because they were from the A'imma. So we're not going to say that, oh, khalas, they're Ahl-Bid'ah. No, their origin is they were from the people of the Sunnah. Just listen. It was said that what reached them was athar based upon the stories of Israel. Athar Israeliyah. The athar from Bani Israel. Right? But as we know, there is principles of which, inshallah, bi'idhnillah, when I have time, we'll discuss if we have every time to do it, that the only time that you can utilize the narrations of the people of Bani Israel is if it agrees with Kitab and Sunnah. If it agrees with Kitab and Sunnah, then we can read something of that which would agree with our religion. It's permissible to accept it, of course. But if it's something that rejected it, of course, then you cannot what? You cannot do it at all. Fine. So this is an example of that. So just listen. It was said that some of the narrations of Israel reached them. Then it became famous and widespread amongst them in the different lands. And the people started different in that. فَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ قَبِلَهُ مِنْهُمْ وَوَافَقَهُمْ عَلَى تَعْظِيمِهَا مِنْهُمْ طَائِفَةٌ مِنْ عُبَّادِ أَهْلِ البصرة وغيرهم وأنكر ذلك أكثر علماء الحجاز منهم عطاء والذي يتبادر إلى ذهنه عطاء بن أبي رباح وليس عطاء الخراساني وابن أبي مليكة ونقله عبد الرحمن بن زيد بن أسلم عن فقهاء أهل المدينة وقول أصحاب مالك وغيرهم وقالوا لك كله بدعة واختلف علماء أهل الشام في صفة إحيائها على قولين. He starts to get into a little bit of what was mentioned. At any rate, those were some of the tabi'een from the past that had did it. He said when it reached some of the ulama, especially those of the ulama of Hijaz. Hijaz we know is currently where we know as of Mecca, Medina, and other than that. Especially Medina and Mecca. That's the ulama, all that's considered Hijaz. All that area right now is considered Hijaz. Right. So it reached, because we know that Imam Malik was the Imam of Medina. They used to call him Imam Dar al-Hijrah. Malik ibn Anas al-Asbuhi, rahimahullah. They used to call him كانوا يسمونه إمام إمام دار الهجرة وهو المدينة. But at any rate, when it reached the ulama of Hijaz, from them was Ata ibn Abi Rabah, and also the great Imam Ibn Abi Mulaika. All of them is from the Rijal al-Sahihain, Bukhari Muslim. Ibn Abi Mulaika and other than them. وَنَقَلَهُ عبد الرحمن بن زيد بن أسلم. That they also mentioned and said, also Imam Malik and also those who had serviced the madhab of Imam Malik, all of them. And all the ulama of Hijaz. They said, you have, you belong, you have practice, all of it is bid'ah. واختلف علماء أهل الشام في صفة إحيائه. Then he talked about how they used to practice it. طيب. We'll go down. I'm just trying to make it a little bit more summarized. طيب. So then he goes on to say, انتهى المقصود من كلام الحافظ ابن رجب. وفيه التصريح. So now Ibn Baz goes on to mention. He say, وفيه التصريح منه بأنه لم يثبت عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ولا عن أصحابه رضي الله عنهم شيء في ليلة النصف من شعبان وأما ما اختاره الأوزاعي رحمه الله من استحباب قيامها للأفراد واختيار الحافظ ابن رجب لهذا القول فهو غريب وضعيف لأن كل شيء لم يثبت بالأدلة الشرعية كونه مشروعا لم يجوز للمسلم أن يحدثه في دين الله سواء فعله مفردا أو في جماعة وسواء سره أو أعلنه لعموم قول النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم من عمل عملا ليس عليه أمرنا فهو رد. طيب. So then the great Imam, he goes on to say, rahimahullah, he says, so now we want to now vocalize and make clear there has not been affirmed upon the Messenger of Allah sallallahu nor upon the companions of the Messenger of Allah anything in regards to the middle night of Sha'ban. As for the great Imam Al-Awza'i, we know Imam Al-Awza'i was from the greatest of the Imam of the past. Imam Al-Awza'i is from the Imam of where, everyone? Of Ahl al-Sham. What was the Imam Al-Awza'i's real name, everyone? Abdurrahman ibn Amr Al-Awza'i. Abdurrahman ibn Amr Al-Awza'i. He was the Imam Ahl al-Sham. Not only was the Imam of Ahl al-Sham, but it was said, test the people. He says, امتحنوا أهل الشام بالإمام الأوزاعي. He was a mihna, he was a test for the people who affirmed the sunnah of his time, the people of Sham. What's Sham? Where is that now, everyone? The area in the region what we know is Jordan, Syria, Palestine, all that's considered what? Sham. But at any rate, the Imam of that particular region was the Imam AbdurRahman ibn Amr al-Awza'i, rahimahullah. AbdurRahman ibn Amr al-Awza'i, to the point where he was considered the mihna, the test for the people of that time of being upon the sunnah not. What do you mean by test? Meaning, if you see the people speaking ill about AbdurRahman ibn Amr al-Awza'i, the more than likely you have an indication that those people are either ignorant or people are thereupon devious and misguided. That's the reason why they used to say imtahinu imtahinu ahlu fulan wa alan bi fulan. Meaning, imtahinu, as they used to say about the people of Misr, imtahinu ahl Misr biman Layth ibn Sa'd. Test the people that, for example, the people of Egypt by who? The great Imam Layth ibn Sa'd, rahimahullah. If you see the people speaking ill about them, then fattahimuhum. Imma hum ala al-jahl wa imma hum ala al-inhiraf. Either they are people that's upon ignorance or they are people that have what? Deviated. But anyway, just to let everyone know that even though this is the status of the great Imam, Sheikh Abdurrahman ibn Amr al-Awza'i, Imam Ahl-Sunnah, does not make to say or remove that he was infallible. He made a mistake in this regard and he'll be rewarded for his ijtihad, but we do not follow him in this mistake by saying it's justified for us to celebrate the middle night of the month of Sha'ban either by prayer or fasting. So even though we have these ulama, great ulama that did it, it still is not a justifiable means to say they did it so we can what? Do it. Like we said, what gets precedence to no matter who it is Kitab and Sunnah. What Allah and His Messenger saying, what the Sahaba did. For what they did is our religion to this day, and what goes against it, then is what? It's rejected. It's clear what I'm saying, everyone? I'm giving everyone, so we have to bring these statements because if a person comes to you, you say, it's bid'ah, طيب, we have statements from Imam Al-Awza'i. Is he from the ulama salaf? This is the reason why we're bringing all these statements. The great Imam Makhul, he's also from the ulama, from the A'imah, and from Ahl Sunnah, Makhul, rahimahullah. And also, Al-Hafid ibn Rajab. I think that goes without saying. But even that, the great Imam Ibn Baz, he concluded this by saying, but even though that's the case, he said, we still have to put it on the scales of Kitab and Sunnah. What they have done, if it goes against it, then is what? It's rejected. He says that everything that has not been affirmed by the Adillah Shari'iyah, and then it is not taken as something that is legislated. And it's not permissible for a Muslim to bring it about as a newly invented matter in the religion. It's not permissible. Doesn't matter whether people do it in a congregation or a person does it individually. Doesn't matter. He said, for everything we establish is an indication that it is what? That it is an innovative practice, and we also likewise what? That we warn from it. قال الإمام أبو بكر الطرطوشي في كتاب الحوادث والبدع ما نصه روى ابن وضاح عن زيد بن أسلم قال ما أدركنا أحد من مشيختنا ولا فقهائنا يلتفتون إلى النص من شعبان ولا يلتفتون إلى حديث مكحول ولا يرون لها فضلا عن على ما سواه. Don't worry, he's memorizing. Focus. He's memorizing. Trust me. طيب. We know from the usul, from the books that I told everyone, this book called Ba'ith al-Bid'a wal-Hawadith by the great Imam Abu Bakr al-Tartushi. I think I mentioned in Kitab al-Tawheed about a month ago, 2 weeks ago. I have the book. It's just one book. I have it in my library. by Abu Bakr Tartushi. It is one of those books that even the great Imam Salih Fawzan said that's coming from a student of knowledge to acquire if he wants to know the origin of innovative practices. From the author, Abu Bakr al-Tartushi, in his book called Al-Bid'a wal-Hawadith. Al-Bid'a wal-Hawadith. As we know, they breaks down bid'ah or innovative practices into different categories. At any rate, this great Imam, Abu Bakr al-Tartushi, what did he say? Listen to what he says in this book called Al-Hawadith wal-Bid'a. Listen what he goes on to say. He says, وَرَوَى ابْنُ وَضَّاحٍ عَنْ زَيْدِ بْنِ أَسْلَمٍ. He said that Ibn Waddah had related upon Zayd ibn Aslam. He said, مَا أَدْرَكْنَا أَحَدًا مِنْ مَشْيَخَتِنَا وَلَا فُقَهَائِنَا يَلْتَفِتُونَ إِلَى النِّصْفِ مِنْ شَعْبَانٍ وَلَا يَلْتَفِتُونَ إِلَى حَدِيثِ مكحول وَلَا يَرَوْنَ لَهَا فَضْلًا عَلَى مَا سِوَاهَا. Then he goes on to say, the great Imam, Abu Bakr al-Tartushi, he says, verily, we have not reached anyone from our mashayikh, nor from those who are the scholars of fiqh, that they even consider the affair of what? The middle day, or specialize, or specifying the middle night or middle day of Sha'ban. Nor do they look to the speech of Makhul. So he's also what? He's criticizing the great Imam Makhul, that he made a mistake, rahimahullah. So we don't consider that to be what? Even though he did it, it's not permissible for us to what? To do it. So you see it? So that's what you see. The person will say, well, the great Imam from the past, for example, Imam Makhul did it. AbdurRahman ibn Amr al-Awza'i, who are tremendous. These are some big names. Makhul, AbdurRahman, al-Imam al-Awza'i, that's a high, that's some people with some heavy knowledge. طيب. But he said, even though that's the case, we do not consider the statement of Makhul to be anything. He says in this regard, and nor do we see that there's a virtue over what is other than the other nights during the month of Sha'ban. There's no virtue over the other nights of the month of Sha'ban. And it was said to the great Imam Ibn Abi Mulaika, the great Imam, who's from the Rijal of the narrators of Bukhari and Muslim. You find Ibn Abi Mulaika is from those great Imam who's in the chains of the Sahihain. He's from the Rijal al-Sahihain, the great Imam Ibn Abi Mulaika. He goes on to say, إن زياد النميري يقول إن أجر ليلة النصف من شعبان. Listen to this statement. Everyone, pay close attention to this one. وقيل ابن أبي مليكة إن زياد النميري يقول إن أجر ليلة النصف من شعبان كأجر ليلة القدر. قال لو سمعته وبيدي عصا لضربته. وكان زياد قاصا. انتهى المقصود. So Ibn Abi Mulaika said that there was from the narrators, his name was Ziyad al-Numayri. He said, verily the reward of standing or fasting in the middle part of Sha'ban is like the reward of Laylat al-Qadr. This is tremendous. Listen to what Ibn Abi Mulaika said. He says, if I would have heard that and my hand was a stick, I would have hit him with it. He said that Ziyad, he used to storytell. Qas. Used to storytell. Tell stories. طيب. I'm going to leave this off here because we're going to stop. قال الإمام الشوكاني. الإمام الشوكاني has a book called الفوائد المجموعة في الأحاديث الموضوعة. So the benefit or the gathered benefits in regards to those fabricated narrations. Listen what the Imam al-Shawkani said. حديث يا علي من صلى 100 ركعة ليلة النصف من شعبان يقرأ في كل ركعة بفاتحة الكتاب وقل هو الله أحد 10 مرات قضى الله له كل حاجة إلى آخره. هو موضوع وفي ألفاظه المصرحة بما يناله فاعلها من الثواب ما لا يمتري إنسان له تمييز في وضعه ورجاله مجهولون وقد روي من طريق ثانية والثالثة كلها موضوعة ورواتها مجاهيل. The Imam al-Shawkani had in his book, not just entitled, I'm going to read this last part. There's a hadith that usually the Sufis use this. This is famous amongst the Sufis. They say, oh Ali, they say whoever prays 100 rak'at. 100. On the middle night or the middle month of the month of Sha'ban, and in every rak'ah that he reads the book of Allah and Qul Hu Allahu Ahad 10 times, Allah will take care for him every need. He said that is fabricated. And he said in some of its clarified statements, he says in which attains, but the one who doesn't, don't worry, I got him, don't worry. Of reward that you see, of the tremendous reward so-called that it sees, he says that which no person can argue, that has some type of tamyiz, that he has some type of distinction, except that he knows that is what? Been fabricated. And he said that also the narrators of the chain are also not known. Rijaluhum majahil, majhulun, they're not known. It's also, like he said, it also came from another chain and another chain. All of it is fabricated. He says all of the narrators are majahil, they're not known. He says in another narration, another statement, rahimahullah, he said, Hadith Salat al-Nisf Sha'ban batil. The hadith of Salat in the middle part of Sha'ban is batil. He said it's false. Right? He said, وَلِبْنِ حِبَّان مِنْ حَدِيث عَلِي إِذَا كَانَ لَيْلَةُ النِّصْفِ شَعْبَانَ فَقُومُوا لَيْلَهَا وَصُومُوا نَهَارَهَا ضعيف. وقال في اللَّآلِ المصنوعة. That's another book that gathers fabricated ahadith, same thing. So basically you just bring all of the narrations in which you'll find that a lot of the Sufis practice, and those Muslims that practice, he's just giving details of how all of them are what? All of them are fabricated or weak. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? There's some other speech that I want to read, but we'll suffice for what we just mentioned here. Right, we'll stop here. He's memorizing. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. Really?